الذي تشربون أأنتم أنزلتموه من المزن أم نحن المنزلون لو نشاء جعلناه أجاجا فلولا تشكرون أفرأيتم النار التي تورون أأنتم أنشأتم شجرتها أم نحن المنشئون نحن جعلناها تذكرة ومتاعا للمقوين فسبح باسم ربك العظيم فلا أقسم بمواقع النجوم وإنه لقسم لو تعلمون عظيم إنه لقرآن كريم في كتاب مكنون لا يمسه إلا المطهرون تنزيل من رب العالمين أفبهذا الحديث أنتم مدهنون وتجعلون رزقكم أنكم تكذبون فلولا إذا بلغت الحلقوم وأنتم حينئذ تنظرون ونحن أقرب إليه منكم ولكن لا تبصرون فلولا إن كنتم غير مدينين ترجعونها إن كنتم صادقين فأما إن كان من المقربين فروح وريحان وجنة نعيم وأما إن كان من أصحاب اليمين فسلام لك من أصحاب اليمين وأما إن كان من المكذبين الضالين فنزل من حميم وتصلية جحيم إن هذا لهو حق اليقين فسبح باسم ربك العظيم
الخلق قدوتنا
Don't do it. No. Don't. Mac dishwashing liquid. You can't resist the foam.
Mac Shine On.
In a time of war, where conflict and human rights violations ravage societies, where voices often struggle to be heard, one organization shines as a beacon of hope and empowerment. SAMNET, led by Dr. Faisal Suleiman, has been leading the charge for meaningful change. We stand against injustice, We challenge media biases, amplify marginalized voices, and honor the true heroes of humanity. Through our bursary program in journalism, politics, and media studies, SAMNET is not just shaping futures, but empowering the next generation to become advocates for change. But our work is far from over. We will continue to raise funds and tirelessly work towards realizing the fundamental human rights of all people. Join us and make a difference. Visit samnet.co.za and contribute to our cause. As Nelson Mandela famously said, "It is easy to break down and destroy. The heroes are those who make peace and build."
This Sanchandi and this toast is so delicious.
Do you know why I pulled you over?
Because I skipped a red light. I have a fake number plate. I don't know my left from my right. I still have to return my DVDs. This car isn't mine. And I put the driver in the boot.
Your taste buds never lie. Sunshine did taste nice. No lies.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to INX Prime, greeting you on this amazing Tuesday evening, which you have chosen to tune in and watch us. Is myself, Maimuna Mabena.
I am Zarif Minty.
And I am Nazia Wadi.
And together we are your hosts from the time being 6 until the hour of 8 o'clock. Now, what to expect coming up tonight is conversations around things that really affect us. And I think the current conversation is all around the Stilfontein mine. And now we're seeing that there is an operation which is Vala Umgodi, and we've seen that there's a lot of, different opinions around what the government is doing to retaliate against, or rather to counteract against the Zamazamas or the illegal miners. At the same time, the community members who volunteer from time to time to assist the illegal miners in terms of ensuring that they have their basic necessities in that sense. Now, I think this comes back to, earlier on where we saw so many reports on how these illegal miners have been creating so much havoc around communities, environments. I mean, the one thing that was so painful to hear was, when the ladies who were sexually assaulted, when they went to shoot a music video, and the miners who then took advantage of, their presence there. And I think that's something that is quite concerning. So now just seeing that, as communities, as South Africans, we're not on the same side on, how to deal with illegal miners. This brings about a serious conversation, and hence I'm looking forward to just hearing what Mishek Mbangula has to say with regards to, this current crisis of Stilfontein. And there's a conversation of a humanitarian crisis arising from that operation of Vala Umgodi. So for more insight, make sure you do tune in to find out more, and I'm looking forward to that. And he is actually the national coordinator of MACUA, which is Mining Affected Communities United in Action. Guys, what's on your guys' end?
I mean, it is a Tuesday tonight, so it is going to be an incredible show in that. We are going to be chatting to Kutia Kasim. Now, she is a dietitian and someone who is going to chat to us a lot about, the issue of diabetes, what a lot of people are currently struggling with in South Africa, but also understanding the different food myths that are out there. So it is going to be a great conversation with her. Away from that, we are also going to be chatting to Mohammed Kasim. Now, he also is the founder of Motivation, which is a personal development platform, but is also a fitness trainer as well. So we are going to be chatting to him a little bit more about building confidence, but away from that, also understanding the concept of using fitness to improve yourself. Nazia, what else is happening on the show tonight?
I'm also looking forward to a conversation, well, two insightful conversations that aim to highlight and create awareness when it comes to gender-based violence. My first conversation is with our resident wellness expert, Ronald Avaji, and we will be talking about the intersectionality between gender-based violence as well as social media. We'll be talking about the leverage that social media can have and the power that social media can have to influence, provide a lot of information, educate women on what their rights are, as well as provide some much-needed resources, tools, and information for anyone who is affected by gender-based violence. We'll also be talking about things like digital safety, as well as the use of social media for change, the way we're supposed to be using our social media to make a difference and inform communities. We'll also be talking about some tools for support for victims, as well as some resources that are available to victims as well. We'll also feature an amazing clip from Tears Foundation, which is one of the leading foundations in South Africa when it comes to support for victims of gender-based violence. But away from that is another insightful conversation with Brenda Snyders, who is the director at Rural Development Support Program. Now, she's incredibly passionate about advocating for gender-based violence, as well as providing tools, resources, awareness and support, particularly within rural communities in South Africa. So do stay tuned for that conversation to find out more about some of the incredible initiatives she has going on in different rural communities across the country, and perhaps also how you can support these amazing initiatives she has ongoing.
I know a lot of people were speaking about, obviously gender-based violence is a huge problem in South Africa, but there is an account that's been, very prominent out there. It is Women for Change. I think it has like a purple logo. A lot of people were speaking about the impact that it has, and it is doing such a great job in terms of awareness and exposure. But then there was also another controversial aspect of it where the founder or the person who actually owns the page is not a South African citizen, it's someone from Europe in particular, but also all the funds that go in terms of that NPO goes directly to her bank account. So a lot of people had an issue with that, and a lot of people were speaking about how, perhaps that's one way for them to maybe perhaps even move money out of the country. It also could be many other different factors as well. I mean, at the end of the day, we hope that it's used for the right reasons in terms of, educating people on gender-based violence and to be able to create more exposure and awareness. But if it is done for other reasons, I think it, kind of defeats the purpose of why they created the platform there in the first place.
I mean, it comes back to, the whole drive by the government to sort of deregister certain NPOs because of the potential terrorist activities that are possible, because many of them are not registered and many of them are not compliant and so forth, and this could implicate the country in terms of them being grey-listed. But so far there are measures being placed to ensure that all NPOs, NGOs are registered and are compliant, which also is a story for another day, because there's a bit of an imbalance in the process and procedure, how things are carried out by the state, and the interaction and engagement with civil society that is out there creating the direct impact to those who are in need. But just coming back to the Women of Change, I sometimes, sometimes when people want to question an organization at a prime time where the organization was literally calling for the cancelling of Chris Brown hosting a concert in South Africa, I think it's quite misdirected energy, because not to say it's wrong, not to say it's right, but the bigger question is, why suddenly now somebody took the effort to investigate the organization when all along they have been just posting about women who are abused and telling their story and really showcasing certain stories that were forgotten. I mean, we remember the two ladies who were fed to pigs. That didn't even trend for so long. Instead, the attention and focus was on Chidima and the likes. And, such things, it's like you wonder, where are our priorities as fellow South Africans? So seeing that now, currently, they're now questioning the finances, which I believe it should be investigated if really there is a red flag there. Yeah. But why is it now, when it's trying to say, why is it we entertaining Chris Brown when we knowing, coming back to your conversation with Ronald, gender-based violence, he has been accused. And if you watch a lot of videos, there are current incidents that didn't stop, not only when he attacked his former spouse or partner, Rihanna, but there are some altercations that occurred after those years or after those months. So I think the energy is misdirected, and I think as South Africans, knowing that we're always crying off the fact that gender-based violence in South Africa is very, very much, it's very rife, and it's at a point where, it's not only between a woman and a stranger, it's between your lover, it's between your family. At this point, it's just, there's no way forward. So I think more that when we're looking at the topic of gender-based violence that you will be having with Ronald, it's a matter of, guys, I think we should stand all together, unified around the fact that we do not tolerate any aspect or any form of gender-based violence or perpetrators of gender-based violence. And I think if which brings me back to this whole thing. If Chris Brown is liable and is held liable by the organization, let's support the organization, let's deal with that. Then after the whole incident, then we can tackle another issue to not confuse and misdirect energies.
I think you echoed my thoughts exactly. I think the timing of all of this is way too coincidental. I mean, Women for Change has existed for a very long time, and they've done a lot of work when it comes to the domestic violence space. And like you said, in telling women's stories and giving the much needed attention to these stories that are often untold or mislooked or overlooked in the general media space. So I think it's ironic that a lot of people decided to say that, you know, there was a lot of hate going towards Women for Change because of their stance on the whole Chris Brown concert, because there are a lot of people in South Africa who are fans of his and were very much against the kind of content and posts that they were sharing on their social media platforms to kind of call for the government to remove him from being able to have his shows here in South Africa. But at the end of the day, I think it also comes down to the fact that, you know, it sends a much larger message to the communities in South Africa. The fact that we are allowing someone who is actively been accused of gender-based violence to allow him to perform on South African soil. I do understand where their perspective comes from, and the message that that sends to communities is that, okay, it's fine if he was, you know, it's fine if he was a perpetrator and was never actually taken accountability for anything that he's done, and we're going to allow that on South African ground. I think it is a very, you know, an issue that will, I think, resonate with a lot of people, and also perhaps, you know, tug on our ethical and moral standings on where we feel about attending these concerts and supporting these kind of things. But I think beyond that conversation, like you were saying, is that gender-based violence is rife in South Africa. The statistics are alarming. But more than that, the issue with gender-based violence in South Africa is that it is not criminalized. And the system in which we, you know, allow women to go to a police station and we allow them to, we say we allow them these rights to allow them to go to police stations and report on incidences. I think the major issue there is the way our criminal justice system is and the way we prosecute, or rather lack of prosecution, for people who are convicted of domestic violence. And I think the larger issue at hand is also believing women when they come through. I mean, when you go the first time, you have to be able to provide proof that it has happened, or they'll turn you away and say it has to happen again for you to be able to open up an actual case of domestic violence. And I think statistically, in a global perspective, in countries where it is a criminalized act, where domestic violence, you can face real jail time and real prosecution for perpetrating domestic violence, the numbers of domestic violence cases are much, much lower. So I think we need to see a lot more transformation in the justice system in order for, you know, victims to, you know, achieve justice, and also to lower those percentages of domestic violence that we do have in the country.
Definitely, but viewers at home, if really our conversation tonight is speaking to something that is of your interest or something that you'd like to know more about, I mean, we're touching on diabetes, we're touching on gender-based violence, and we're also touching on the current crisis in Stilfontein mine. Make sure you do tune in. But for now, let's head over to Salah. We'll see you when we come back.
اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم وبارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. اللهم رب هذه الدعوة التامة والصلاة القائمة آت محمدا الوسيلة والفضيلة والدرجة العالية الرفيعة وابعثه المقام المحمود الذي وعدته. نودي لصلاة العشاء من رحاب بيت الله الحرام بمكة المكرمة. اللهم يا من ذكره شرف للذاكرين ويا من شكره فوز للشاكرين ويا من طاعته نجاة للمطيعين. صل على محمد وآله، واشغل قلوبنا بذكرك عن كل ذكر، وألسنتنا بشكرك عن كل شكر، وجوارحنا بطاعتك عن كل طاعة. فإن قدرت لنا فراغا من شغل فاجعله فراغ سلامة لا تدركنا فيه تبعة، حتى ينصرف عنا كتاب السيئات بصحيفة خالية من ذكر سيئاتنا، ويتولى كتاب الحسنات عنا مسرورين بما كتبوا من حسناتنا. وإذا انقضت أيام حياتنا وتصرمت مدد أعمارنا واستحضرتنا دعوتك التي لا بد منها ومن إجابتها، اجعل ختام ما تحصي علينا كتبة أعمالنا توبة مقبولة لا توقفنا بعدها على ذنب اجترحناه ولا معصية اقترفناها، ولا تكشف عنا سترا سترته على رؤوس الأشهاد يوم تبلو أخبار عبادك، إنك رحيم بمن دعاك ومستجيب لمن ناداك. اللهم لا سكينة إلا بك، ولا تعويل إلا على جودك، ولا سعادة إلا منك. أنت الذي لولا فضله ورحمته لهتكت أستارنا وفضحت أوزارنا وأظلمت أنوارنا. لا إله إلا أنت، أنت البر الرحيم الحيي الجميل الكريم. سبحانك وبحمدك لا نحصي ثناء عليك، أنت كما أثنيت على نفسك. اللهم نسألك حسن الحياة وحسن الرحيل وحسن الأثر. اللهم صل أفضل صلاة على أسعد مخلوقاتك سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم عدد معلوماتك ومداد.
الله أكبر الله أكبر، أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله، أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله. حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح، قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة. الله أكبر الله أكبر، لا إله إلا الله.
استووا استووا، أقيموا صفوفكم واعتدلوا، سووا صفوفكم وسدوا الخلل، وأتموا الصف الأول فالأول. الله أكبر
الله أكبر.
الحمد لله رب العالمين، الرحمن الرحيم، مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. لله ما في السماوات وما في الأرض وإن تبدوا ما في أنفسكم أو تخفوه يحاسبكم به الله فيغفر لمن يشاء ويعذب من يشاء والله على كل شيء قدير. آمن الرسول بما أنزل إليه من ربه والمؤمنون كل آمن بالله وملائكته وكتبه ورسله لا نفرق بين أحد من رسله وقالوا سمعنا وأطعنا غفرانك ربنا وإليك المصير. لا يكلف الله نفسا إلا وسعها لها ما كسبت وعليها ما اكتسبت ربنا لا تؤاخذنا إن نسينا أو أخطأنا ربنا ولا تحمل علينا إصرا كما حملته على الذين من قبلنا ربنا ولا تحملنا ما لا طاقة لنا به واعف عنا واغفر لنا وارحمنا أنت مولانا فانصرنا على القوم الكافرين. الله أكبر
الله أكبر.
سمع الله لمن حمده
ربنا ولك الحمد.
الله أكبر
الله أكبر.
الله أكبر
الله أكبر.
الله أكبر
الله أكبر.
الله أكبر
الله أكبر.
الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. لا يغرنك تقلب الذين كفروا في البلاد متاع قليل ثم مأواهم جهنم وبئس المهاد. لكن الذين اتقوا ربهم لهم جنات لمن يؤمن بالله وما أنزل إليكم وما أنزل إليهم خاشعين لله لا يشترون بآيات الله ثمنا قليلا أولئك لهم أجرهم عند ربهم إن الله سريع الحساب يا أيها الذين آمنوا اصبروا وصابروا ورابطوا واتقوا الله لعلكم تفلحون الله أكبر
الله أكبر
سمع الله لمن حمده
ربنا ولك الحمد
الله أكبر
الله أكبر
الله أكبر
الله أكبر
الله أكبر
الله
الله أكبر
الله أكبر
الله أكبر
الله أكبر
الله أكبر
الله أكبر
سمع الله لمن حمده
ربنا ولك الحمد
الله أكبر
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 سمع الله لمن حمده
ربنا ولك الحمد
الله أكبر
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 السلام عليكم ورحمة الله السلام عليكم ورحمة الله
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله السلام عليكم ورحمة الله
Step back in time to the grandeur of the Mughal Empire, where opulence and culinary artistry reigned supreme. Now experience this timeless elegance in the heart of Santon at Lal Killa, where history and fine dining converge. Indulge in an unforgettable Mughal dining experience. Lal Killa, relive the Mughal legacy. Visit us today and experience the grandeur of Mughal dining.
In a time of war, where conflict and human rights violations ravage societies, where voices often struggle to be heard, one organization shines as a beacon of hope and empowerment. SAMNET, led by Dr. Faisal Suleiman, has been leading the charge for meaningful change. We stand against injustice, we challenge media biases, amplify marginalized voices, and honor the true heroes of humanity. Through our bursary program in journalism, politics, and media studies, SAMNET is not just shaping futures, but empowering the next generation to become advocates for change. But our work is far from over. We will continue to raise funds and tirelessly work towards realizing the fundamental human rights of all people. Join us and make a difference. Visit samnet.co.za and contribute to our cause. As Nelson Mandela famously said, "It is easy to break down and destroy. The heroes are those who make peace and build."
Welcome back, guys. If you are just joining us, this is INX Prime Live. Remember, we are on your screens every single Monday to Friday between the hours of 6 p.m. and 8 p.m. Now, today we are thrilled to welcome Coetzee Kassem. Now, she is a knowledgeable and passionate dietitian. With her expertise in food science and nutrition, she's here to dispel common myths as well as some misconceptions about diabetes as well as food. Now, we'll talk about diabetes management, nutrition, and food choices to help you make informed and healthy decisions for yourself and for your loved ones. Assalamu alaikum and welcome to INX Prime, Coetzee.
Walaikum salam. Thank you for having me.
No, it's a pleasure having you. I want to get straight into this conversation though. I know many people believe that sugar is normally the main culprit when it comes to diabetes, right? However, there are other factors that are at play. Can you explain to us how factors like, your genetics, also your weight, and also other health conditions can contribute towards the development of diabetes?
Sure. So I think I need to firstly start off by explaining the two main types of diabetes. So you have type 1 diabetes, which is an autoimmune condition. There's basically a destruction of your insulin-producing cells in your pancreas. So therefore, a type 1 diabetic will not be producing any insulin at all. This is not dietary related. It's hereditary. It's an autoimmune condition. Whereas type 2 diabetes, on the other hand, is not just caused by consuming too much sugar alone. There are other factors that go together with consuming too much sugar, okay? There are genetic conditions. There are things like being overweight, being obese, not exercising, not having any aerobic activity in your life, a sedentary lifestyle. So together, these factors with eating too much sugar will cause diabetes. It's not just eating too much sugar on its own.
Yeah, that's very, very true. And I mean, that's very interesting in that sense as well. I just wanted to know, in terms of some of those myths and misconceptions as well, what are some of the most common misconceptions about diabetes and food that you have come across in your time or in your work as a dietitian?
There's so many. But from the top of my head, I think the worst one for me was a lot of people believe green apples are better than red apples, saying that green apples won't increase your blood sugar levels and red apples will. There's no such thing. And another big thing is that diabetics should cut out sugar or carbohydrates completely. It's definitely not what it is. You don't need to cut out your carbohydrates completely. Yes, you do need to cut down on sugar, and you do need to eat your good carbs, your complex carbs rather than your simple carbs. But cutting out carbohydrates completely is a disaster on its own.
No, that's very, very true. I mean, I'm just looking at some of the comments and questions coming in from social media. We actually have a question coming in as well from Kagiso. Kagiso wanted to know some of the practical tips that you can share when it comes to managing diabetes. He says in terms of meal planning, food choices, and navigating social situations as well where food is involved.
So I know it's very difficult navigating a social gatherings. I have diabetics in my family as well. So the best would honestly be to see a dietitian. Look, most medical aids do provide a dietitian consult once or twice a year, and to get a personalized meal plan. That would be the best. But off the top of my head, I would say eat a healthy, balanced diet. Make sure you focus on your good starches, your good carbohydrates. Avoid simple carbohydrates, avoid sugary foods, jams, donuts, sugar, sweet things, basically. You also want to include a lot of vegetables in your diet. At least half of your plate should have vegetables on it. You also want to always eat a protein or fat with your carbohydrates and not just carbohydrates on your own. Something also very interesting that came up in a journal in 2019. It was a study done saying that if you eat your non-carbohydrate foods first, like your vegetables or your proteins, and then eat carbohydrates after, there's a less likely chance that your blood glucose levels will increase. In terms of social gatherings, I know it's difficult. I would suggest don't fill your plates up with carbs, don't fill it up with cake and pastries and donuts. Rather go for your healthier options and try and always make sure there's a protein on your plate. So instead of just taking a slice of cake and all of that, make sure you fill your plate with vegetables where possible. If there's no vegetables available, then take something with a protein, go for a chicken skewer or beef skewers as well as your cake. You don't have to cut down on the sugary things at parties. Just portion control. And if there are no vegetables or any other foods available to you, then portion control. Instead of taking 4 different pastries, just take one and eat that one, and then have like a glass of water or something else.
No, that's very, very true. I'm just looking at some of the other comments and questions coming in. I mean, one of the questions I really do want to share with you, it's from Jessica as well. She was saying, out of all of the different fast food outlets out there, would you say that Nando's is the most healthiest out of all of them as a dietitian?
I wouldn't say it's the most healthiest. And honestly, none of your takeouts are actually that healthy, but it is considerably healthier than others, considering that it's grilled. But one must remember that they are still using sauces. They are still frying, their chips and stuff are still fried. Their potato wedges are loaded with sauce. Their burgers are loaded with sauce. And all of those is where your calories and your extra fat and your salt comes in.
Yeah, no, that's very, very true. And I mean, that's very unique to also understand. I just wanted to touch on, this whole concept of diabetes as well. We know that a lot of people speak about, sugar, and they emphasize the fact that a lot of food that are sugary, obviously then result in someone having a higher chance of getting diabetes. But there's also a lot of other foods out there that perhaps are low in sugar but are still delicious and they still taste really, really good. Can you name some of those type of foods for our audience as well? In fact, if they're looking for alternatives to the sugary stuff.
Okay, so I must just say that it's not only sugar-free that you're looking for, because remember, once you're diabetic, any starch or any carbohydrate that you eat will be digested into glucose. Glucose is basically sugar. So any of these foods will contribute to a high glucose level. So just because something is sugar-free doesn't mean it's carbohydrate-free. I mean, if you have a look at sugar-free biscuits, for example, you can't eat 5 or 6 or 7 biscuits thinking nothing's going to happen, because that biscuit is still a carbohydrate. A lot of other times, sugar-free foods are not that healthy. They are filled with fat and sweeteners and other things to make up for the sugar component that's not there. So I wouldn't say to a diabetic, go and get something that's sugar-free, because it needs to be carb-free as well, or low carb. So ideas for snacks and things like that would be your vegetable sticks, cucumber and carrot sticks, yogurt, low-fat yogurts, popcorn, portion control though, 2 cups, not more than that, avocados, nuts, things like that are low in carb, high in fiber, and have no sugar in them. I would rather go for something that's naturally sugar-free rather than something that has been sweetened with a sweetener.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I'm just looking at some of the other comments and questions coming in. I know that James had a comment as well. He was saying, unfortunately, he's allergic to avocado, so it actually limits him a lot. But then we do have another question from Mati, and Mati actually wanted to know if you can share maybe perhaps your favorite recipe, or anything that's quite nutritious in that sense for someone who does have diabetes, just without, obviously a kind of a recipe that they could use without it compromising their health in any way. Do you have one of those?
Sure. From the top of my head, I can give you something easy because I can't exactly read the recipe out. But I would say for a snack, instead of going for a bag of chips, I would maybe go for homemade popcorn. But your portion control again would be 2 cups of popcorn. Another nice thing that you can actually make is roasted chickpeas. So it's a can of chickpeas. You rinse it under cold water and drain it. Pat the chickpeas dry and then lay them out on a oven tray. Sprinkle your chickpeas with olive oil and then rub in your spices of choice. But remember, if you're hypertensive, to avoid the salt in your your salty seasonings. So you would go for things like cumin, coriander, garlic, herbs, things like that. Just whatever spices that you want, put it over the chickpeas and then roast your chickpeas for 20 minutes in the oven, and the last 5 minutes put your oven on grill and let them get nice and crispy. A half a cup serving of that would be perfect for a diabetic to have as a snack instead of a bag of chips or something unhealthy. Another nice recipe that I really like for breakfast is egg muffins. So you take eggs, as many as you would like, you whisk them up and throw in some chives, onion, mushrooms, spinach, any vegetables of your choice. Obviously try and avoid the starchy vegetables. Put in a little bit of sweet corn or corn, and then put them into a muffin trays and then bake those, and you have little egg muffins that you can eat for breakfast instead of having a high carb or fatty breakfast.
Now that sounds delicious actually. But just in closing, before we do let you go, I mean, I'm just thinking about a lot of the young people in South Africa and all around the world. We have this new phenomenon where people are sitting on their phones or they're on Netflix and they're watching, 2 or 3 hours of content, and they don't actually recognize how much of food they're actually eating. What advice do you have for our youth of the country in particular when it comes to eating healthy?
I would definitely say have a variety of food. So if you're a person who likes to sit on social media or watch Netflix or something like that, instead of grabbing a bag of chips from the cupboard, maybe take those chips, but half the packet, and then have some fruit as well on the side, or some vegetable sticks. Instead of just eating a whole load of carbohydrates, make sure you get in your fiber-rich foods, your nuts, your homemade popcorn, fruits, berries. Berries are amazing. Strawberries, fruit sticks. So instead of just grabbing carbs only, make yourself like a little bowl, small bowls, one with your crisps or one with your fruit, one with vegetable sticks, and that way you're having a variety of food and not just loading on the sugar or loading on the carbs.
Coetzee, it's been an absolute pleasure to chat to you as well. Thank you so much for joining us here on INX Prime Live.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much, guys. That is Coetzee Kassem, who is actually a dietitian, just telling us about the importance of managing diabetes, as well as understanding all the different misconceptions and food myths that are out there when it comes to diabetes as well. Now, on that note, we are going to take a quick ad break, but we'll come right back.
They say everything that matters most is at home. At Wonder Flooring, we fill your home and workspaces with warmth, elegance, design, and happiness. Through the best innovative flooring solutions such as musalas of any size, vinyl tiles, carpeting, hard floors, and so much more. Our mission is to provide professional and innovative floor solutions using unique quality products at affordable prices. Let us help you make a wonder of your flooring with design and professional advice to suit your needs. Visit www.wonderflooring.co.za today to discover more. Products sold internationally and nationwide. Wonder Flooring, innovative floor and decor solutions.
Are you missing out on doing the things you love? Swollen and painful joints may be caused by the loss of cartilage, injury, or the result of normal aging and overuse. Joint pain, stiffness, and inflammation can be managed with OsteoEase. Our combination of glucosamine and chondroitin plus other active ingredients work to build healthy cartilage, improve mobility, and reduce pain. That's why we're the #1 joint supplement brand in South Africa. OsteoEase. Keep moving with ease.
Looks like Steven's all over the place. Perhaps it's time to share my secret.
Replace, the delicious meal in a glass perfect for your go-getter lifestyle. High in energy, protein, omega-3, 26 vitamins and minerals. Isn't it time you shake up your day the Replace way? Replace Junior, packed with nutrients to optimize growth and development, immune and brain function. The delicious meal in a glass, loved by kids. The shake for kids on the go.
As a mom, I know that mental vitality is an important part of a child's development. That's why I choose Excel from TIB. Excel improves cognitive functions such as alertness, learning, and memory, and it is completely natural. And as a teacher, I see the results every day. Great for kids and great for me.
In an era where spiritual fulfillment, selflessness, and tolerance are scarce, there exists a place of deep theological reflection and one that brings hope. Medina Institute, a sanctuary of Islamic enlightenment, offers the keys to unlock the 5 sciences of Islam, prioritizing the teachings of the Quran and authentic Sunnah. Guided by Sheikh Muhammad Ninawi and world-renowned scholars, we cultivate an environment of critical thinking and theological reflection. We help students on their spiritual journey as they find light, gain knowledge, and go deeper into serving humanity. Experience the spirit that is instilled into the foundation of this historical institute. Achieve your greatness and join us to embark on your journey of true empowerment and fulfillment. Medina Institute, offering accredited programs with the Department of Higher Education.
Welcome back, viewers. You are still tuned into Prime Live. We are so privileged to have in studio with us our resident wellness expert, Ronald Avaji. And today we'll be discussing something a little bit different, but something incredibly important as well. We'll be talking about the intersectionality between gender-based violence as well as social media. So join us as we delve into a very important discussion, as we know that the rates of domestic violence in South Africa are absolutely unacceptable. Assalamu alaikum, Ronald. Thank you for joining us on Prime Live.
Wa alaikum salam, and good to be with you as always.
I mean, I'm excited to delve into this conversation. I mean, gender-based violence is a really, really big issue in South Africa. I mean, how common it is absolutely unacceptable. So I'm really glad that we have an opportunity to talk a bit more about it and understand what we can do better and what we can do in our day-to-day lives to talk about awareness as well as tools and resources. But to kick off our conversation this evening, can you talk to us about how the rise of social media has contributed to the proliferation of gender-based violence, and both in an online setting as well as an offline setting?
So social media is not the cause of gender-based violence, but it is a megaphone for gender-based violence. So when we look at it from a perspective of what is it doing to be this megaphone that is amplifying the rates of gender-based violence, number one is you're looking at it from a perspective that it's promoting misogyny, number one. And that is promoting content that is from a pornographic nature to an abuse nature, and it's creating it in the new language that everybody understands, which is called memes. So people laugh when they see, lately there's been a social media trend, especially on TikTok, where a lady's arguing with a man or a partner. She pretends to hit the partner looks, he pretends to hit, but he can't. He goes, dresses up as a woman, comes in, and then hits. And people are laughing, liking, sharing, and comment on it. That's not funny. That's promoting misogyny in a gender-based violence way, right? The second thing that we look at is that 40% of harassment in South Africa on social media, 40% of harassment of women is caused by social media in South Africa, which means social media is an amplification for those that are seeking anonymity, that are hiding behind other profiles and that are promoting harassment of women in a very sexual, violent way, in a threatening way, in a bullying way that's causing not gender-based violence, but it's causing emotional distress and strain. So when we look at these two things, these are the two main things that we look at as how social media is amplifying this. And what else is happening is that we as users thereof are doom scrolling rather than interrogating the type of content we're viewing and the type of content we are endorsing. Why aren't we reporting it? It also boils down to the accountability on self and to move away from the impact social media has on our cognitive abilities to say no or yes to what is on there.
I think what you've mentioned is so important. I think when it comes to social media, it clouds our everyday spaces. And when you see this kind of content, yes, it may seem like it's a harmful, playful thing to do things like that. But if you look at how a younger audience might interpret that, they may understand that this is a normal way in which men and women communicate with each other, or it's the normal way in which people are supposed to disagree with each other. And that perpetuates very difficult senses or very difficult mindsets that are hard to break. And children don't learn from what you tell them to do. They absolutely learn from what they see. And we know that they're not supposed to be on these platforms, but they are. And, you know, consuming this kind of content is very dangerous for them. And I think, like you said, we need to be mindful of the kind of content that we are consuming and the kind of content we're giving power to. Are we liking these types of videos? Are we sharing them with friends and family? And are we taking accountability for the kind of content that we are sharing? To us, it might seem like it's something silly and fun, but it isn't at all. It isn't okay to perpetuate these ideas and to share them on a social platform. But what I also want to ask you, in doing so, in trying to be more mindful about how we navigate the social media space, how can we navigate digital safety? What are some tips and tricks that we can do to navigate the internet in a safe way, but also being mindful of the kind of content we are consuming and sharing, and then also trying to promote positive behaviors on social media and making social media spaces something that is more inclusive and something that is more appealing to positive ideas, in, you know, encouraging people, motivating people to do better instead of perpetuating violence.
So when we look at social media, let's look at some of the top platforms. You'll hardly find this content on LinkedIn, because LinkedIn is known as a business networking platform, and it's where you're putting your best foot forward because it's within the business community for either a job or to promote what you're doing as an entrepreneur. You look at the platform like Instagram. Instagram is known as an aesthetically pleasing platform. So it's rather about, are you living in the real or are you living in a role? Are you standing next to a sports car that's yours or that's just parked there that you're standing next to? And it's very aesthetic. So you hardly find this type of content on there. But you do find bullying content, and you do find people are still hidden behind anonymity. The second thing we look at is TikTok. Now, TikTok is a youthful, with Snapchat as well, it's a youthful platform that is just driving droves of content. And the content there is to drive likes, views, and that's it. Why? Because it can be commercialized. Also, it's fueling a need within many young people. How many likes did you get? How many followers do you have? How relevant is that? Because you can actually buy them. But that is a platform where I notice a lot more of these things are influencing the thinkings and the behaviors of young people. So what can we do? Number one is parents to young people, you need to educate yourself on these platforms. You need to be on them, put in guardrails, hold your kids accountable, and do what you need to do within the parameters of not being a prison warder, but rather being a guide in that process. The second thing is, we are at a point where we need to ask ourselves as individuals, why am I on the platform and what content am I viewing and promoting? That is a self journey. And if that is something that you're promoting, please note, if you're promoting gender-based violence, harassment, sexual innuendo content, liking, sharing, or even viewing it for longer periods, you are endorsing that behavior. You must accept that. And the last thing that we need to look at is consistent education around just what the impact of this is. Can we stop it? I don't know, but I do know we need to start. And the more that we educate and inform, the better, the closer we are to trying to get maybe 1, 2, or 3 people to stop and to challenge 1, 2, or 3 more people, and we can create a compounding ripple effect of this.
Absolutely. It comes down to that consumer power. If you are consuming that content, you're liking it, you're sharing it, you're watching it longer than you should be, you are absolutely endorsing what the video is presenting. And I think the young mindset is so different. For example, getting something like 20 likes or 20 comments on your post is seen as, oh my gosh, that's so little, that's really poor, that's really horrible. But if you look at it in reality, if 20 people told you you looked amazing or they're really proud of what you've done, I mean, that's absolutely phenomenal. That's absolutely amazing for 20 people to acknowledge and value what you've seen and what you are doing. But I know you also had an opportunity to speak to, you know, the founder of Tears Foundation. I'm such a fan of the work that they do and everything that they inspire. I mean, they're one of the leading organizations in South Africa when it comes to advocating for gender-based violence, but also providing much-needed support and resources for victims. So viewers at home, we did have an opportunity, or rather Ronald had an opportunity to chat with Mara Glenny from Tears Foundation. Let's take a look.
Something else that I've noticed is social media. Social media is big, and so is traditional media. But we know that South Africans spend on average 3 hours and 43 minutes a day on social media. And I am flabbergasted at the amount of content that is posted, whether it's acted content or real content, that really glamorize violence, you know, especially against women. And, you know, almost making jest out of it, in that the men will now dress up as a woman and then go and slap her back, for example. And this for me is scary, because with over 43 million people who have access in South Africa to these social devices, it scares me. And is this popular culture contributing to literally normalizing abusive behaviors within societies?
I do think that's so. I recently worked with the Gamers Association. So interestingly, that's a different kind of violence, but women gamers often play under pseudonyms because they are absolutely hounded by their male colleagues on the net. It's well publicized. So I think one of the difficulties in all this situation is that you've got to be wise when you use your computer, when you look at any stuff. So a lot of organizations that deal with rape and abuse victims have a quick exit button, so that if someone comes into your room to talk to you and you are on a GBV help, it might put up something about specials on vegetables, depend which program they have. So all kinds of social media lend itself to GBV abuse. And it's a very difficult thing. But then on the other hand, I'm proud to say that we use Facebook to help victims. So I do think it's also to be wise in what you post. People post so many intimate information about themselves and their families that they lead themselves to be open to getting abused, to being stalked, to being tracked. In no ways do I ever say that it's justified, but I do say that you have to be more wise.
Now, Ronald, in closing, what is your vision for the future? What do you hope that viewers at home take away from this conversation in terms of using their social media for good, perhaps using their social media to empower, using their social media to educate, to create awareness, as well as providing tools and resources for those out there who might need it?
Number one is we need to embrace responsible digital citizenship. That's what it is. And number two is, what is responsible? Responsible is promoting and pushing and developing content that fills and fuels your purpose, your essence, and your why. My purpose is to give the experience of value in every one of my engagements or touch points. That means my content needs to share that. The things that I like, view, and observe, my feed needs to fuel that, because that is my core purpose. And the work actually starts in what drives you, what fills you, what fuels you, not what distracts you, entertains you, and is doom scrolling enabled. And when you can distinguish between the two and own your purpose, your actions around your social media feeds and behaviors will definitely improve.
Thank you for sharing that, Ronald. I think we all need to be a lot more mindful about the content we're consuming, the content we're sharing, and how we're utilizing our social media platforms. I think there's a lot of issues in South Africa, but there is a lot we can do within our own platforms and in our own spaces by sharing positive content, by sharing content that is going to empower people around us, and content that is going to, reflect the kind of morals and values we share and have, and the kind of people we want to be. So thank you for joining us.
Absolute pleasure.
Viewers at home, that was our resident wellness expert, Ronald Abaji, and very inspiring and very interesting conversation this evening, discussing the intersectionality between social media and gender-based violence. Are you aware of your actions on social media and the implications they might have on yourself, your family, your friends, and maybe even your followers? We all have a responsibility to use our social media responsibly and be responsible about the kind of content we're sharing, the kind of content we're consuming, and the messages we are perpetuating on these platforms. It's about time we all start using our platforms to share things that are helpful, things that are inspiring and empowering. But let us all give it a shot and be better on social media. But on that note, it is time for us to head over to an ad break, and we'll come right back.
How do you innovate laundry powder?
Introducing a first in South Africa, Personal Touch Washing Powder Sheets. It's washing powder compressed into smart, compact sheets.
See? No guesses, no misses.
One sheet equals one load. It dissolves quickly, leaving behind no residue or stains, just ultra clean laundry.
It will change the way you do laundry. Smart sheets, easy laundry.
Septiguard Broad Spectrum Herbal Complex activates your doctor within to target and fight infection.
As the years go by, I see my father growing older. I feel that by helping to improve his nutrition with LifeGain, I can enhance his quality of life.
If you need more than the usual nutritional support, look to LifeGain to enhance your living. LifeGain is an advanced nutritional supplement with a unique triple protein-based formula which is high in nutrients. LifeGain. Gain the advantage.
Step into INX Prime, a TV and digital broadcast channel that is a catalyst for change and a platform for all voices to be heard. Proudly South African, yet inclusive. We're on a mission to break divides. With viewership spanning Africa and beyond, we're bringing groundbreaking content to your screens and devices. From lifestyle, fashion, culinary delight, to spiritual upliftment, business, and hard-hitting talk shows. There's something for everyone. It's time to revolutionize your brand reach. Advertise with us, grow your customer base, and let's disrupt the media landscape together. Be part of the change. INX Prime DSTV channel 345 and on the app. Ignite your brand. www.inxprime.com.
A very good evening to our viewers at home. I am Maimuna Mabena with your news. On Tuesday, the official operation began to rescue an unknown number of illegal miners from an abandoned gold mine in Stilfontein, Northwest Province. Earlier, community members who were assisting with rescue efforts were told to stand down and make way for the official multidisciplinary team, which included mining experts. The Zamazamas are reportedly hiding in a disused shaft at the old Buffelsfontein mine, refusing to resurface due to fears of arrest. In the past month, over 1,000 illegal miners have been arrested in the province as part of Operation Vala Umgodi, a targeted effort to curb illicit mining. Private Medical Aid Discovery has decided to proceed with the Future of Health Summit despite concerns raised about Israeli healthcare providers participating in the gathering. Discovery SA will be hosting the FOH Leadership Symposium in Cape Town until this Friday. Kajal Ramjathan Kio, director of the International Commissions of Jurists at the ICJ, said Discovery's intention to host Israeli healthcare officials was tone deaf and unconscionable. Discovery has claimed there is no direct link between attendees from the Sheba Medical Center to the Israeli Ministry of Health. According to conservation NGO BirdLife, there are fewer than 10,000 breeding pairs of penguins left on the planet. The NGO has sounded alarm over the dwindling global penguin population that was recorded at 42,500 in 1991. Due to a combination of factors including a lack of food, climate change and disease, they could become extinct in the wild by 2035. However, the SA National Park says the biggest threat is nutrition, as starving penguins tend to abandon breeding. In January, a commercial fishing ban for 10 years around 6 penguin colonies was implemented, but according to conservation experts, the no-fishing zones are not large enough to have a significant impact.
This is because there's only about 10,000 breeding pairs left in South Africa and Namibia where they occur. Means we've lost 97% of the population, and the species could become extinct within my lifetime. So it's something that really is a critical issue at the moment.
Seeing them, we're hearing that they're critically endangered, actually kind of breaks my heart. And I think with COVID-19 and all the things that have happened, we have lost so much already, and we continue to lose. And I think as people, we don't appreciate what we have until we have lost it. So
we really need to do everything we can, and securing their food source is one of the biggest things that we can do to try and stop that decline. And it is possible to recover the penguin. That's the thing. We can't lose hope. So we have to keep the hope. And
Brazilian President Lula da Silva opened the G20 summit in Rio by launching an alliance to curb world hunger, which he called a scourge that shames humanity. The Global Alliance Against Hunger and Poverty marks an early summit success for Lula, with a total of 81 countries signing on the dotted line. The initiative has set the ambitious goal to reduce world hunger that affects 733 million people, or around 9% of the global population. Lula proposed that a 2% tax on ultra-rich individuals could generate around $250 billion annually to address social and environmental challenges.
It is not just about making justice. This is an essential condition for building a more prosperous society and a world of peace. May this summit be marked by the courage to act. That is why I would like to officially declare the Global Alliance Against Hunger and Poverty launched. Thank you very much.
Negotiators sought to break a deadlock at UN climate talks in Azerbaijan after G20 leaders backed the need for trillions of dollars for poorer countries, but left key sticking points unresolved. Rich nations are being urged to significantly raise their pledge of $100 billion a year for poorer countries to take action against climate change. But efforts to finalize the deal in Baku are hampered by disputes over how much the deal should entail, who should pay it, and what types of financing should be included.
The reality of the situation is that 1.3 trillion pales in the face of the 7 trillion that is spent annually on fossil fuel subsidies. The money is there. It is just in exactly the wrong place. The world needs 1.3 trillion to deliver 1.5 degrees. The alternative is the burden of tens of trillions in loss, damage, and costs over the next decade in an unstable and dangerous +3-degree world.
U.S. Special Envoy Amos Hochstein has arrived in Lebanon to spearhead efforts for a ceasefire in the war with Israel. On Monday, a Lebanese official said the government had a positive view of a joint France and U.S. truce proposal. The United States is pushing for the full implementation of UN Security Council Resolution of 1701, which ended the last Israel-Hezbollah war in 2006 and required all armed forces except the Lebanese army and UN peacekeepers to withdraw from the border. More than 3,510 people have been killed since clashes began in October last year, with most fatalities recorded since late September. We stay in Lebanon, where residents are in shock a day after an Israeli strike hit the busy Zuqaq al-Blat neighborhood in central Beirut, killing 5 and wounding 31 others. The Lebanese National News Agency said great damage was caused to an apartment near a mosque that had been targeted. However, residents of the targeted building say they have no idea why the Israelis bombed a barbershop, a mobile phone store, and a municipal office.
I have no clue, nor do I have any idea what they were trying to hit. I don't know. There's nothing here. Just civilians, residents, and the displaced. That's it. May Allah help everyone. The glass broke in all the surrounding buildings. People come here to get their IDs or family paperwork or for help. That's it. There's no Hezbollah office here or any other kind of office. We've been here for 40 years. This is a barber shop. That's a corner store. And this is a mobile phone store. There's nothing else here.
Meanwhile, one woman was killed and at least 17 others injured in multiple rocket attacks fired at central Israel that sparked a fire in Tel Aviv shopping mall. The IDF says the Iron Dome intercepted some of the 60 rockets that targeted northern Israel and western Galilee, while others caused damage in open areas. The 41-year-old woman was killed by a rocket that hit a 3-story building in the northern town of Sharam. The Haifa Medical Center said a total of 56 people were brought in for treatment, mostly for acute anxiety. That's it from me with your news. Let's head over to the weather and financial indicators.
Wave's nourishing amla oil super hair food deeply conditions my hair and scalp for moisturized, healthy looking hair. Try it. Easy Waves, styling you can see and feel.
When faced with an unexpected medical emergency, the anxiety of not having sufficient medical financial cover can often be more damaging than the medical condition itself. At the touch of a button, Emergivac Sharia will evacuate you to the closest private hospital and put up a hospital admission guarantee cover of up to 575,000 Rand for accident or emergency illness-related events. Download the Emergivac Sharia app today and use promo code INX to sign up. Or WhatsApp INX to 083 352 7860. Emergivac Sharia is brought to you by the Activation Agency, a wholly owned subsidiary of Sheikh Investment Holdings. Sharia supervisory services are provided by iConsult Africa.
Welcome back, viewers at home, and thank you so much for tuning in here on Prime Live. Now, the South African government has been taken to task by various NGOs after its Vala Umkoti campaign against illegal mining resulted in a standoff between hundreds of illegal miners and police in the Northwest Province. For 2 months, the Stilfontein community was stopped from taking down food and water supplies as law enforcement sought to force the illegal miners to surface. We understand hundreds of miners remain underground even as scores have been rescued by local volunteers. Now, for more on this, I am joined by Mishek Bangula, who is the National Coordinator of Makau, now which stands for Mining Affected Communities United in Action. Now, he also joins me to weigh in on this humanitarian crisis that is unfolding. Good evening, Mr. Bangula, and thank you so much for joining us this evening.
Thank you for having me. Good afternoon, good evening to the listeners.
Now, to start off our conversation, I think it would be fair for you to, if you are able to, give us an update on the current situation at Stilfontein Mine.
Well, as we arrived today, in fact, yesterday we had a meeting with the MEC regarding the rescue team that needs to take place as from today. But what we find out is that the rescue team process will take almost about 7 days because they need to firstly remove rubble and be able to put a crane, and after that put a camera to check how's the hole and everything, and then do a survey and look at how they can take the people out there. But within that process, we are concerned that the people are still hungry because they only got food from Saturday. And as of Sunday till today, there was no food. And we are fighting for them to be given food. And that's where the process, the way we are stuck. And we sent a letter today through the rope to say they must move away from the entrance because as they do the survey, the rescue team, some of the bricks might fall down there and hurt them. So they must move away. And we explained to them that the rescue team have started to remove bricks and to put the camera and survey how it looks there before they can go in. But the serious problemness of that we are facing is that those people are not given food and water to eat. And that's what we said, let's preserve life. Let's not just diminish the life of people just like that.
Now, still weighing in on your thoughts with the current crisis in Stilfontein, how would you best express in terms of how did we get to this point and who actually should be held responsible for the humanitarian situation that has unfolded?
You see, when mining came into South Africa, even before 18-something, they were coming here to do mining and looting minerals, the so-called investors. And when they've looted enough minerals, they don't even make sure that they have a contingency plan of training the very same workers to be able to marketable in other sectors when they close the mine. They just close the mine. They don't just even close the mine. they leave the mine, the shaft like that, not closed, and leave the people without any skills. And when obviously poverty kicks in, and you know that there is a food down there, you will go down and you will not just sit at home and do nothing, but you will go down there and get something to eat. So what we are saying is those mines, because we've got more than 6,000 abandoned mines in South Africa, imagine how much of those mines have looted minerals. And when coming into closure, they did not close these mines. So the criminal, the one who brought us into this situation, is the very same big mines that came in and took our minerals and left the shaft like that without closing them. And as of today, the high unemployment rate that we are facing in South Africa, what do we expect these people to do when they have only one skill, to go down into the mine and do the mining? So the criminals are the ones who came in and mined without rehabilitating the land. Because if that land was rehabilitated, we will have built houses in the sector. We will have other companies who will have come in and do business in this, and people get employed. But we can't use that place because it's really very dangerous and rehabilitated. So, and again, the government itself, we have engaged him to say, let's transform this sector to make it, to formalize it, because it can generate a lot of jobs if it's formalized in the right way. Stop decriminalizing these people, and make sure that we start working on, say, how do we change this sector to make it a sector that can generate jobs, since we are facing high unemployment rates. It fell into deaf ears.
Now, without taking away from the current humanitarian crisis faced by the illegal miners, we've seen some of the, adverse effects of some of these zamazamas in terms of, some of the cases that are pending and the chaos within communities, which bred this operation Vula Umkosi. I believe now this operation has been criticized for its heavy-handedness in the way zamazamas are being treated. Do you believe there could be other more humane ways of dealing with the illegal mining?
Yes, because those comrades underground, they are prepared to come out. There's nothing that is a lie that they don't want to come out. But how do you stop to give people food and water when you, as the government himself, the constitution states very well that is, you will have to make sure that these laws in the constitution are followed. Section 24, Section 27, 1.b states very well that is, people have the right to sufficient food and water. Section 11 of the Constitution, people have got the right to live. People got the right to life. And you go down there and now you stop food, you stop water. These people themselves, you cannot correct a wrong with a wrong. You need to make sure that these people come out and it follows the processes, not just stop food. And you're breaking law to take out people, you tell them people you can smoke them. What type of government are you? Are you for the people? I don't think so.
Now, still on the impacts of mining on communities, I want to know from you, what responsibilities are the mining companies neglecting, especially when a mine has come to the end of its life?
You see, a mine, before even starts mining, there's obligation of making sure that there's money for rehabilitation. As you mine, you must know that you will be able to rehabilitate and make sure the land goes back to how you find it, so that that land can be able to be used. It's either for farming, for other sectors, build houses and so on. That's an obligation that needs to be done. And as we destroy the land because you are looting minerals, you should be able to take it back. And at the same time, there are other laws. As the mine operates, it must uplift the life of people through social and labor plans, and not just mine looting minerals. Those communities that are hosting you, you need to uplift their life through skill development and other things, making sure that as you are there, they need to benefit as well. But unfortunately, they don't really follow all those laws. And on top of that, the government cannot give the closure license to them if they couldn't rehabilitate the land. They should rehabilitate the land, put it in the right place, and they get a license of closure. But most of them, they didn't get those licenses because they just looted and went out the way. And if you know in 5 years' time, as if you are a genuine mine, you will make sure that those people who are working for you, they get skills so that they can be marketable somewhere else. But you just close and leave them like that. And in many instances, they even destroy the hostels that are there, the buildings that are there. For the people, where do the people go? They must go and build shacks, and people have worked for you for many years. But when you just leave them like that. So they are not interested in uplifting the people, but they're interested in taking our minerals, make maximum profits. And worse, those profits, it doesn't come down to people to live the life of people, but it goes to the very same parliamentarian who drive nice cars, big houses, and people don't even generate decent jobs for the people. So mining is just a formula that it doesn't assist people to change their life for better living.
Mr. Mbangula, has Makua initiated its own legal case against the government, or will it be joining or supporting the cases that are currently before the Pretoria High Court?
Well, we were just wanted to wait for an outcome today. Unfortunately, the case has been postponed. But definitely sure, if you look at the Constitution and what they've done on the like Section 27, Section 11, we have the right. We are looking at opening up a case against the very same criminals who are saying the illegal people are criminals. They are criminalizing themselves, but they, how can you say you vala mkoti, you vala food, you vala water, and what do you expect those people? You are killing those people. That definitely sure we will make a case against the very same government who are supposed to preserve life. They can't even allow people to get food as we speak.
Mr. Mbangula, any closing thoughts with regards to what's currently happening in Stilfontein on both ends, how it has impacted the communities, as well as government's role in this issue?
Well, we are calling to everybody, unions, movement, to really come together against this issue of the government not want to preserve life, because we have seen that in Marikana. We are seeing it now happening. So we are, as movement, as unions, we are on our own. We need to really unite and fight this capitalist government who just wants to see enjoying tax monies which comes from the same unions, because the very same big unions themselves don't have licenses, but nobody's touching them because they give tax to those people. We gave them the reports of these mines not having licenses, but because the white elites, now nobody's touching them, just because those are lousy, poor black people, they're being targeted. If they want to do their work correctly, so arrest even those big commercial mines that are mining without licenses and destroying our land as well.
Mr. Mbangula, thank you so much for joining us this evening and just shedding light in terms of the current situation in Stilfontein and just highlighting some of, the incidents that have transpired through the days, as well as your views and feelings around the situation itself.
Thank you.
Viewers at home, that was Mishek Mbangula, who is the national coordinator of Makua. Now, that's where he was sharing in his views on what's currently happening in Stilfontein. But for now, viewers at home, that's where I close it off. Let's head over to an ad break. We'll see you when we come back.
As the world looks to a younger generation as a beacon to understand our future, there is a show with visionary imagination.
Welcome to INX Prime.
INX Prime brings you our daily live show, Prime Live, with our Gen Z presenters, Maimuna Mabena, Zarif Minty, and Nazia Wadi.
Desmond, thank you so much for joining me tonight.
You're welcome.
Join Prime Live every evening between 6 p.m. and 8 p.m. and see the change that gives rise to generations.
Important things I love to say is be self-disciplined, because if you're disciplined, you will get what you want.
Ooh. Hey, I think let's stick to saying peanut butter and jam.
A show that is thought-provoking.
Just looking into what's happening in Gaza is something that think of you having load shedding times 10.
Entertaining.
What do you call a group of tortoises?
They called it creep.
A what?
Topical.
A lot of the water in Gaza is not actually safe to drink.
And challenges our beliefs.
Part of what happens when you speak up yourself is that you teach people how to treat you.
Prime Live, only on INX Prime, DSTV channel 345 and on the app.
Ciptogard Natural Antibiotic is an antiviral, antibacterial, anti-inflammatory and antioxidant.
And now?
Mac Cream Cleaner makes light work of tough dirt.
Shine on!
Welcome back, viewers. You are still tuned into Prime Live. I'm so privileged to welcome an incredible individual by the name of Brenda Snyders, who is the director at RDSP, better known as the Rural Development Support Program. Now, we're going to be talking about the incredible work they do in rural areas, in communities in South Africa when it comes to gender-based violence, whether that be creating awareness or supplying tools and resources for victims. They are absolutely incredible in what they do and what they're able to provide for communities in South Africa that don't necessarily have these resources. Brenda, thank you so much for joining us on Prime Live.
Hi, good evening, and thank you for inviting me to be part of your program.
You know, I think this is such an important conversation, and when it comes to gender-based violence, it's all about providing much needed education, support and awareness, particularly within our rural areas in South Africa. So I really want to start our conversation by commending you on the incredible efforts that your organization has done to make that possible. But to start on, you know, to get our conversation kicked off this evening, I want to talk about, you know, the background. Can you tell us a bit more about the background of the organization, some of the history, as well as the vision or mission of the organization as well?
Yes, RDSP has been around for quite a number of years. It's all started back in 1991 when there was the original concept. RDSP was born out of the Catholic Church. And then there was a need identified to do some work in the rural areas. The original concept was to place skilled people from urban areas to go and work in these rural areas. But after some research was done, I decided that it's far better to identify new community development projects or activities that was starting off, and to train those community volunteers who were part of those rural activities, so that the skills and the knowledge can remain in the rural area instead of putting people there for a while and taking them out. And that has always been our methodology, is to train local community volunteers to do the work.
I think that's an incredible way to make an impact in community, especially when you are giving tools, resources and information. You're actually empowering those individuals in those communities to spread the message, to spread the empowerment and to spread the growth. And I think that is an amazing way to approach community development, particularly within rural communities, is upskilling and empowering people. I think that's incredible. But can you talk to us a little bit more about some of the initiatives and some of the programs that you have when it comes to your activation in rural communities?
Well, we have a few programs. So the gender-based violence is one of them. Then we also have an organizational capacity building program. I'm sure a lot of people have seen in the news the deregistration process of non-compliant organizations. So that's a big thing that we try and address through our programs, because those are the people who provide the services. And obviously, to receive financial support, to be able to get donor funding, they need to be compliant. So that's a big part of what we do, training people on what compliance means, the different areas of compliance, also connecting them with the different institutions who they need to be compliant with. For example, last week we had the SARS come to our session in the Northern Cape, where they spoke to people at our session. They checked their compliance status. So we're also in the process of arranging with them to go through to these rural community and assist them with registering right in their local community, because the financial thing, it's a big challenge when it comes to traveling to the bigger cities to become compliant. Then the substance issue is also another big challenge in all communities that we're addressing, also through providing training on that. Also training the local community volunteers to run info talks, to do puppets for the younger kids, the 5 to 9 year olds, to run support groups. So there's a whole lot going on. And so we identify the need in the community, meet with the local community volunteers, find out what is their exact need, and then design a program for that community.
I really love that the organization is able to address so many different issues that are being experienced in these communities. I think it's so important to lend a helping hand in each and every one of these respective areas where the need is so great. But I want to steer our conversation back to the aspect of gender-based violence and talking about how the aspect of cultural attitudes as well as, biases, our own biases, are able to condone the idea of domestic violence. How are you able to navigate the ideas around these cultural sensitivities that do exist within communities that might actually perpetuate the idea of domestic violence or violence against women, while still you're able to advocate for the safety of women and the protection of women at the same time?
Yes, it does become an excuse to say this is in our culture, it's acceptable in our culture. And I think the biggest challenge is to use the culture to your advantage. So that, because I don't think any culture wants a negative connotation attached to their cultural activities and practices. So, so to make sure that they understand that what you are doing, and if they understand gender-based violence, a lot of time women come, and it's in a way, because it's a cultural norm, they accept it. This is the way we should be treated. But once they actually learn that it's not just cultural, it links to abuse. It's becoming abusive. So the culture is just an excuse. So I think the one thing is then to focus on the difference between the cultural activity and what is abuse, and for them to see the link for themselves, and not for me or for whoever's facilitating to point that out, because then it becomes judging their cultures. So just giving them the facts, and then they will start to see, but this is actually not culture, it's actually abuse. Also to focus maybe more on their rights. It's again coming down to facts. This is what the Domestic Violence Act say. This is your rights in terms of the Constitution. This is what the Sexual Offences Act say. So I think not to focus so much on cultural, because that has been developed, over many years and decades and generations. And I also think maybe from generation to generation, it's also changed a bit. And some take it too far, so that it actually becomes abusive and it's not a cultural activity anymore. So, but yet to remain sensitive and respectful to the cultural activities that they have.
I think in that way, that's how education becomes so important. It's being able to educate people on, these definitions of what constitutes domestic violence, what constitutes sexual violence. I think it's important for, creating some much needed sense of education and being able to allow people to draw those lines on, where it ends, where culture starts and where violence starts. I think it's a very important thing. And I think there's definitely a great need for that in South Africa as well, when it comes to, being able to educate communities, because when it comes to, these, like you said, a lot of the time it's blamed on culture, but sometimes it isn't even part of culture. It's just these, these sexist biases that exist within communities that need to be addressed and maybe also alleviated in that way. So thank you for sharing that. I think it's so important, the work that you're able to do in these communities. But what I also wanted to ask you this evening, I know that tools, resources, and information like this is so powerful in terms of combating gender-based violence, and also being able to empower a victim with them having, you know, the ability and the access to understand what their rights are, where are their rights defined, and what they can actually do about a difficult situation. Can you perhaps share some information with us on that as well?
Yes, I think it's very important, and it has to do with the kind of services. And what we find in the work is that you can give the people, or what we call victims of violence, those who are still trapped, and we do find a lot of young girls in that situation, is to give them the tools, the knowledge, but at the end of the day, it's still their choice, you know, whether they want to address it and in which way. And we also, recently we had a program that was more focused on equipping youth with life skills. And some of them for the first time could speak openly about their abusive relationships. And some of them have managed to either move on or to really speak up for themselves. But it's about that self-confidence. And if nothing changes in that way, so if the self-confidence doesn't increase, then you can give them all the tools and the knowledge and the information, but nothing will change. So it really speaks to the issue of, you know, the change starts with you. So you first need to recognize your self-worth, your self-confidence, and your value, and then you will be able to address the situation. And we do find that happens quite a lot. So you can give them the information on the GBV, but a bit more than that is needed. So you also need to work on their personal growth and development.
Absolutely. I think that's very powerfully said. I think when it comes to violence in general, what happens a lot is, statistically, it's been proven that anyone who has, you know, experienced any kind of violence at a young age, or witnessed any kind of violence at a young age, of course has a higher chance of becoming a perpetrator later in life, especially when it comes to young children. They say a lot that children, you know, they don't learn from what you tell them, they learn from what they see. And growing up in an abusive household can absolutely, you know, of course the trauma, but of course also perpetuate and, you know, almost create an understanding of that is how conflict is handled, or, you know, and I've seen myself with young children who grew up in abusive homes with some of the organizations I had the opportunity to work with, is that, you know, they understood that when mom and dad had a fight, this is how it would happen. So when we have an argument with a younger girl or a girl in class, this is how we deal with the argument, or this is how we stop the argument rather. So I think what you've mentioned there is incredibly important, is the education aspect is incredibly important, and, you know, also understanding, you know, the kind of support that a victim might need is incredibly important as well. But I mean, your organization does such incredible work, and I'm sure it is not an easy job to be able to, you know, bring all of this together and bring the much needed support. And I guess my question to you is also, how can the community get involved? How can our viewers assist? Are you open to donations? Is there any way or form that we can contribute? Because I feel, you know, we have to promote this sense of active citizenry, that if we are in a position to assist, we absolutely must. Are you able to share any details or information on how our viewers can get more involved?
Yes, thank you very much. We've got what we call the Mary Lack Community Grant, which was started in the name of one of our late board members, who was very, very passionate about community work and especially rural development. So we've got, and we are a registered PBO, so we are able to offer the 18A certificate. And if they can have a look on our website, which is the www.rdsp.org.za, all the information to provide a donation can be found on there. And especially if we look at, because another program that we started was some of the economic empowerment, where we donated some ovens to some of our organizations, and they are baking bread and all sorts of lovely things which they can sell, and the women who assist in the kitchen can earn a bit of an income, or at least get something to put on the table at night. We also started an art program which is focused on assisting children through art who is dealing with trauma, especially with the GBV. So yeah, we would also appreciate some funding to support some of those art centers in the rural areas. because obviously a lot of the children come from poverty. So, you know, to be able to give them something to eat when they come to the sessions, that would be much appreciated.
Thank you for sharing that. I mean, just listening to, you know, some of the other initiatives that you have ongoing is absolutely incredible. But Brenda, thank you so much for joining us this evening, for shedding some much needed light on what needs to be done when it comes to gender-based violence, as well as sharing some of the incredible work that you and your team are able to do in rural communities in South Africa. So thank you for joining us, and I really commend you on your efforts in terms of providing some much needed support for communities across the country.
Thank you very much. And we had our board meeting today, and I was saying to the board, you know, it really gives you hope to see that there are so many people in communities who are willing to make a difference. And yeah, we are just very privileged that we are able to support all of those people. And thank you very much once again for the opportunity to share.
It was a pleasure having you. Viewers at home, that is Brenda. She works with an incredible organization that is centered around creating much needed sense of awareness, support, as well as resources for the victims of gender-based violence, but more than that, providing education when it comes to gender-based violence in rural communities in South Africa. But their work goes beyond that. They are all about community upliftment in these areas. They work with children, and they are also involved with many other initiatives that you can get involved with as well. So please do reach out to them on any of their platforms via their website to reach out to assist them in any way that you can. We talk about how much we need to assist rural communities in South Africa, and the best way that we can do that is reaching out to organizations like this and assisting them to continue on the amazing work that they are doing to empower those communities. On that note, it is time for us to head over to an ad break, and we'll come right back.
Step back in time to the grandeur of the Mughal Empire, where opulence and culinary artistry reigned supreme. Now experience this timeless elegance in the heart of Sandton at Lal Killa, where history and fine dining converge. Indulge in an unforgettable Mughal dining experience. Lal Killa, relive the Mughal legacy. Visit us today and experience the grandeur of Mughal dining.
In a time of war, where conflict and human rights violations ravage societies, where voices often struggle to be heard, one organization shines as a beacon of hope and empowerment. SAMNET, led by Dr. Faisal Suleiman, has been leading the charge for meaningful change. We stand against injustice. We challenge media biases, amplify marginalized voices, and honor the true heroes of humanity. Through our bursary program in journalism, politics, and media studies, SAMNET is not just shaping futures, but empowering the next generation to become advocates for change. But our work is far from over. We will continue to raise funds and tirelessly work towards realizing the fundamental human rights of all people. Join us and make a difference. Visit samnet.co.za and contribute to our cause. As Nelson Mandela famously said, "It is easy to break down and destroy. The heroes are those who make peace and build."
You don't know any German, do you? Helpful?
Starten, laden.
Yeah. What's next? Mac. Of course.
Mac Auto Powder is the easy part of laundry.
Mac Shine On.
Imagine a world where unity triumphs over division. We want to make the flag that isn't allowed to be flown in its own country the most famous flag in the world. Join the Coalition for Good and eradicate the injustice against humanity, apartheid. Stand in solidarity with the people of Palestine and show some heart. Share your country's unity flag icon proudly and share the truth. Let the world know you support humanity. The Coalition for Good. humanity in action.
Welcome back, guys. If you are just joining us, this is INX Prime Live. Remember, we are on your screens every single Monday to Friday between the hours of 6 p.m. and 8 p.m. Now, tonight we are joined by someone who is seen as a fitness expert, but also the founder of Motivation. It is an inspiration and motivational platform that is out there to inspire and change the lives of many people out there, more specifically looking a lot at the males in the country and around the world. Now, we do know that there is quite an important correlation between men's health and men's mental health in that sense, but also their relationship with fitness and trying to be able to link the two together. Now, we are going to be chatting to Mohammed Qasim to find out a little bit more about his journey, but also more specifically on how men can actually use fitness and also gymming, for example, exercise, to be able to get over all of the stresses of the world. Mohammed, thank you so much for joining us this evening on INX Prime Live.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
It's a pleasure having you. And I mean, a lot of conversations have to be had when it comes to things like this. I think there's a lot of stress out there for men in particular. But before we get on to that, let's just talk about you. You know, you are someone who is in the space of health as well as in terms of fitness. What got you onto the journey of both of those aspects?
When I got into fitness, I think I was about 19 years old, went through a bit of a family turmoil. My parents got divorced. It was during my matric year, and I had no idea which way to go, and I had all this anger built up inside of me, and I needed to find a way to release it. And I was always a sporty type of a person. I loved football, played it my entire life, and I decided, you know what, one day there was a friend of mine going to the gym, let me jump in with him, and I lifted up the first weight, and I got addicted to it completely. But over time, I realized that as good as it is for the body, this weightlifting, this training was helping my mind. And I understood the mind was more important than the body. So if I could sort the mind out, the body would take care of itself.
Yeah, and I think that's the one misconception a lot of people have, is that they focus so much on the physical aspect, on making sure that they look, you know, aesthetically appealing or whatever it might be. But it comes to fixing both of the elements, right? There's a lot of discipline, there's a lot of mindset changes that comes with being, you know, having the ability and the consistency to be able to get those results as well. I just want to touch on coping mechanisms as well. Now, we're looking at people using exercise and gymming. A lot of men and women also use it as a way to cope with all the stresses of the world as well. Do you think it's something that people should really focus on in terms of using it as a coping mechanism, or should we look at other alternatives?
I think it's a great coping mechanism because it releases dopamine in your body, it releases endorphins in your body. These are the happy chemicals we need to live a happy, healthy life. And if we look at life where all the stresses are coming down and cortisol is being released constantly in our body, we need to find a way to release it in a healthy way. So not getting addicted to unhealthy things. And work can be unhealthy as well. You can get addicted to work and work your way down to an absolute burnout without finding some sort of a way of releasing all this tension inside of us. And for me, weightlifting was that way of releasing it. But whether you're running, weightlifting, cycling, swimming, as long as you are moving, we were really built to move. And if we're gonna sit stagnant, all that's going to happen is our mind is going to stagnate. And as Bruce Lee once so beautifully put it, he said, stagnant water gets stale.
I mean, that's very powerful as well. I just want to touch on even the concept of what other people are doing out there. You know, you're talking about swimming. People are doing paddle quite a lot these days. And it's a nice way for people to, you know, socialize, network, but also for them to then, you know, cope with all the stresses in such a good, healthy way. You spoke about the fact that, you know, obviously doing too much of something is never a good thing. So you want to not get addicted to anything. I mean, even one of those things that people tend to somehow get addicted to is also like the concept of too much of exercise or too much of gym. You know, how would you know, what are some of the signs for some of the men and women out there when they're over-exercising, or maybe perhaps they're addicted too much to the concept of gymming?
I think pain is one of the greatest blessings that we could ever get. And when your body starts to feel pain in places, in uncomfortable ways, it is your body's way of telling you it's too much, whether it's too much of stress, too much of work, too much of training, too much of anything for that matter. When you start feeling the pain, don't just brush it aside. You know, no pain, no gain. I actually don't believe in that. We have to actually listen to our pain and use that to guide us into finding a balance a balance that will suit us as human beings. And each person is different, and each person's burnout level or stress level is very different. So you as an individual need to look at yourself, go internal, know what is the issues you have and how far you can push it.
Yeah, and I think that's such an important thing. You know, even just looking at the gym environment as well, we are getting some comments and questions coming in from social media. I mean, Wasim was saying now, he made a comment and he says he feels often very demotivated because he goes to the gym and he looks on his left and right, and sometimes he's not where these people are, you know, and I want to just talk about that in particular. We're talking about comparison and comparing yourself to other people around you. Why is it such a negative thing for people to go out and compare themselves all the time to the people around them?
From the time we were born, we were being compared to those around us. Once we were in school, we were being compared. And nobody ever taught us that the only comparison should happen inside of you. So Wasim, if you look to your left and you're comparing yourself to that guy, or you look to your right and you're comparing yourself to that guy, look in front of you and compare yourself to the guy in the mirror, because that's your only competition in life. If you can fix him, nothing else matters.
Yeah, and that's very, very important. I think, you know, spending time on self-confidence and self-development plays such an important role. Motivation, I want to touch on something else. You know, we're looking at the concept and we're going back to the whole fitness journey element of it. There's people out there that maybe perhaps are starting their fitness journey. They're starting to get into gymming or exercise or whatever it might be. What advice or tips do you have for them when it comes to finding a balanced lifestyle? So it's, you know, obviously getting the hours in, putting the effort in, but also then having a happy life where you are doing other aspects of your life as well.
A lot of people might disagree with me with this one, but I do believe don't ever go in and give 100% every single day. If you give you 100% every day, you're going to need rest days in between, otherwise the body will break. And if you need rest days in between, you'd probably get 3 days of workouts a week, which will take you to about 150 workouts a year.
Yeah.
However, if you go in at 70% every single day, and you go in 6 days a week, you're getting 300 workouts a year, you're finding more consistency, and if 1 or 2 days you need to push it to that 100%, you know you're capable of doing it. So don't go and kill yourself. Understand you're doing this for your benefit, for your health benefit, and not the compliments of those around you saying, wow, you've gone so big, wow, you look so good. If you need those compliments, again, go internal and see where this void inside of you is, and try and fill it with your own self-love, your own self-worth, so that whatever you put out there comes from a place of uniqueness within you.
Yeah, and I think that's so important. I just want to touch on some of the other comments and questions coming in. I mean, we have a question from Ibrahim as well, and he's speaking about the importance of mindset. You know, he wants to know how important is mindset when it comes to developing someone in terms of their own personal development and growth. Does it play a very important role?
Mindset's extremely important, but I think there's another factor that a lot of us forget, and that's heart set.
Okay.
And our heart is where all our emotions actually live. So we spend our entire life trying to still our mind and trying to calm our mind, when the stillness actually comes from our heart. And if we can get back in touch with our heart, our root, the actual organ that was beating before any part of you was actually built inside the womb of your mother, when you actually touch on that, you can start stilling everything else. So find stillness of heart, the mind will follow. Once the mind follows, the body will follow, and then you have an alignment of heart, head, and hand.
I love that. Motivation, before we do let you go as well, I mean, you're one of, if not, you know, one of the best motivational speakers out there. You're also someone who really does inspire a lot of people. And you can see that clearly from the amount of support you get from social media. People really tend to really enjoy your content, and rightfully so. There's a lot of young people that are inspired and motivated by you. You know, they look at you as a mentor as well. What advice do you have for a lot of our young people in South Africa? I mean, we have a high unemployment rate, unfortunately, in South Africa. There's a lot of issues that we have, but we do have ambitious young people, right? What advice do you have for them?
That we've been taught in this world that everything is limited. We've been taught that space in a university is limited, space in a school is limited, space in a stadium is limited, space everywhere around us is limited. But we've actually not learned that things like love and giving and joy, these things are unlimited. So let us search for the things that are unlimited, and we'll attract that in our life. Because the truth is, in life, you do not get what you want, you get what you are.
I love that. And just in closing also, before we do let you go, I mean, a lot of people, like I said, wanted to actually really be mentored by you. Is that something that you do offer in terms of mentorship? And also, where can people see you, maybe perhaps at a next talk or at a next event?
So yes, there is two mentorship programs that I run. One is the youth mentorship program, of course, letting the youth understand their value and of course letting them know that they are going to be our future. So we need powerful leaders going forward. And then there's the male mentorship program, and that's for men that are going through a tough time, men that are not understanding their purpose, and we help them get out of this rut that they're in and put them back on the pedestal where they actually belong. And you can catch me on social media across all platforms. My handle is Motivation SA. That's MOETIVATION SA. Catch me on there. I always put up all of my talks and everything as well.
Perfect, Motivation. I mean, it's been an absolute honor to have you on the show as well. Thank you so much for joining us this evening.
And it's been an honor to be here. Thank you so much.
Perfect, guys. That is Mohammed Qasim, who's also known as Motivation. He does run an incredible platform and a program for a lot of young people to be inspired and motivated. You can definitely find him on social media. But I guess it's the end of all of the show for tonight in particular. We'll definitely see you guys tomorrow between the hours of 6 p.m. and 8 p.m. But on behalf of Nazia, Memuna, myself, Mohammed, and everyone else here at INX Prime, stay kind, humble, and grateful. Assalamu alaikum.
Are you missing out on doing the things you love? Swollen and painful joints may be caused by the loss of cartilage, injury, or the result of normal aging and overuse. Joint pain, stiffness, and inflammation can be managed with OsteoEase. Our combination of glucosamine and chondroitin plus other active ingredients work to build healthy cartilage, improve mobility, and reduce pain. That's why we're the #1 joint supplement brand in South Africa. OsteoEase. Keep moving with ease.
As a mom, I know that mental vitality is an important part of a child's development. That's why I choose Excel from TIB. Excel improves cognitive functions such as alertness, learning, and memory. And it is completely natural. And as a teacher, I see the results every day. Great for kids and great for me.
Welcome back to another exciting episode of Wellness with Will. My name is William, last name Lahong. Our very special guest today is Precious Msiza, who is in the wellness education space. Precious, a warm welcome to you. Thank you so much for making the time to be on Wellness with Will. Good to see you.
Thank you for having me, Will. I'm excited.
You know, when we talk about education and educating the young mind, right now, the entire world is rapidly moving through and for the technology space, right? And I feel like us as Africans in particular, we are lagging in some way. And you can paint to me how dire the picture is in real time. But let's talk about firstly why it's important for our children and us as Africans to really be on par with the world where technology is concerned. And we'll talk about what that means for our mental health in just a bit.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate the opportunity. Having said that, that's a very remarkable the way you have put it, because we have realized as a company on what we are doing that Africa is a continent, unfortunately, it's not even South Africa.
Yeah.
We are so behind it heads with when it comes to technological issues. Having a look at us, they call us the third world country. Me personally, I even say seventh world country, because you look at countries like your China, your Japan, your Switzerland, your European countries, where a simple standard of in your primary education, these kids, they learn how to assemble your laptops, the whole setup that we have here. It's not even done by somebody who's in high school. It's done by somebody who's your 6-year-old, 7-year-old. That should tell you now how behind we are as in African countries. I personally have seen how my son, who did grade 12 last year, you ask him what do you want to do when you study after matric, they have no idea. Our kids have no idea what the future is where technology is concerned. And we think that when we talk about technology, unfortunately, they think that we're talking about Facebook, how to browse on Instagram, on Facebook. Right. Technology is much rooted and much deeper. And in talking about the country at large, economically wise, if the country is not invested in technology, that's unfortunate, because that's where the money is, and that's where the world is reviving to. So if our children, which is our next generation, are not concerned with technology, then we are not going to be left behind. The economy of our continent, not even as a country, is in tatters, unfortunately.
I appreciate you saying that, because as the world right now, we are rapidly moving into artificial intelligence. In fact, there are even technology, there are apps that you can download on your phone, and this app can help you with your mental health on a day-to-day basis, right? So I imagine kids who are on the continent of Africa, which is where you and I are now, are looking at other kids from other continents, and they're not necessarily finding each other on the basis of the mindset, because the mindset of an African child here isn't necessarily exposed technologically to everything that a child in China, as you've mentioned, in some countries in Europe. There's a huge difference. How do we bridge that gap, Precious?
That's a beautiful question. Well, that's exactly what we are trying to do by the program that we have done as a company, because our motto, we are saying we want to change the mindset of an African child where technologically is concerned.
Yeah.
We used to think that technology, even the term technology, you thinking that only an A student, somebody who has done science, can do that.
Yeah.
Because there's have been that intimidation when it comes to learning it's not even a subject, it's more like a lifestyle, if I could put it like that.
Right.
So we have introduced this program as a company where literally we go to schools, we go to media, where we are shouting from the mountaintop that, guys, it's time our children, even us as adults, if you care to learn, where you have to know technology. It's so sad. I was 3 days ago, I was reading, I saw it online. There's this machine that can assemble a 6-bedroom house in less than 8 hours.
Yes.
A machine. So that tells you that all the careers now are revolving towards technology. So if we are not inclined to technology, then what is the future for a black child? So our program, we try to encapsulate technology into young minds, that you don't have to fear the subject. Actually, there's nothing to fear. It's just exposure that you need. Once you learn, we call them ABC of technology.
Right.
Once you learn that, I'm telling you, you can assemble the engine of an airplane. You can assemble these big machines that are intimidating. Literally, there's nothing you cannot do. But it starts with the mindset. You have to change your mind that we cannot be beaten by America. We cannot be beaten by European countries.
Yeah.
If they can do it, we're living in the same soil, we are seeing the same sky, definitely we can do it. But it starts with the exposure of the mind. If you get your mind right and telling yourself there's nothing they cannot do.
And right now, obviously, all the construction workers watching the Wellness with Will show have just heard Precious saying there's a machine that can do your job in 10 times faster. in a third of the time. So they're all anxious. They're all going through all sorts of emotions right now because of the artificial intelligence that is coming into our aid. But obviously, we are now working through your program at helping these young minds come into the world already understanding that there's artificial intelligence that's here to help me. So also in my applying my mind to certain tasks, I can even do things that AI necessarily cannot do. So what are the ABCs of technology that you are teaching these young minds?
You talk about how to assemble a motor. Let me divert just a bit. You know, I was an accounting student. In accounting, there are 6 basic principles that encapsulate accounting at all costs, everywhere. So every question that you meet in accounting, it has one or more of those principles. So once you can understand, not cram, understand how they're applicable, you can sort or you can solve any problem concerning or regarding accounting. It is the same with technology. If you understand.
Oh, we're gonna have to take that again. I forgot to put this on silent. Sorry, Precious. We can try that again. Do you want me to ask the question again, or do you remember your trail of thought?
No, I think I do remember.
Okay, continue from that. So you're gonna edit that out and Paul, and then Precious will continue. 3, 2, 1.
Well, having as I've explained, the 6 principles of basic in accounting is the same principle. It comes to account in technology. If the motor that has been used to assemble maybe that computer, believe you me, it only will differ in sizes. This one maybe I'm making an example. It's 3 megabyte. For an engine to run a big machine, something like you control the engine of an airplane, it is the same principle.
Right.
The only thing that is different now is dimension. It's your atmosphere. There's environment.
Just the parameters, yes.
You see now all of that, but you have to understand those basic. Once you get those basic right, so how we teach it is we call it from bottom up.
Okay.
Yes. So understand the groundwork. You understand the groundwork, the principles, the basic. Then you'll be able to build up from there. Yes, to start from your minor topics to cover, and then it aggregates to more complex situation. But it's taken from the same concept.
Right.
Yes.
Obviously, Precious, we know that, within the world that we live in today, there is a lot of technology helping us from day to day. To get to the studio, I had to get into a car. I had to I had to hail a cab or a ride using my app, right? You can even right now in real time call through an app called October Health, where you can speak to a therapist or a psychologist, and this psychologist can help you through a session understanding what your anxiety triggers are, what you're going through right now. And I imagine intellect is a big part of technology, is it not? How are you finding the marriage between the two helps individuals that you are trying to develop?
Yeah, that's a very critical statement, Will. I was reading myself of the whole mental wellness aspect. How does it go about in us, in relating to us? And it's so interesting that they said the mental wellness, it comes in 8 dimensions, and one of those dimensions, it is the intellect, the intellectual part. So what is intellectual part? It is the capacity for one to handle different ideas, different environment, and so that you become a whole you know how to adapt to different environment, to different. So it's the same that, not even 20 years ago, 10 years ago, not so long ago, technology, it was a foreign concept. Honestly, it was not as popular as it is now. During COVID, everybody was talking about 4G. We didn't even understand the dynamics of what is 4G, but everyone was talking about 4G. This year in April, I was in Kenya. While the world, not even the world, us, Africa, we are talking about 4G. Do you know that the world is talking about 6G now?
Yes.
That how means the speed of processing things we're still not even familiar. We're not even that comfortable with your 4G. It's still a foreign concept to most people. You would be shocked.
Yeah.
While the world is talking about 6G. So now, coming back to you, answering your question about intellect, how ready are we intellectually to compete with the rest of the world, while the rest of the world is talking about AI that is so advanced, it is so scary.
Right.
While our children, we still teach them, there's nothing wrong with that. But our education system has to, it has to change. It has to be different, because what they are teaching now, it's not competent with the world structure, what the world has to offer there versus what they are teaching our children. So technology in our program, we try to bridge that gap. We know, we are aware that it is in very small capacity, but if we could get programs like this where we are being watched by the world, where people could come in on board and say, how can we help, or how can we assist, or how do we enroll our children? That's where it starts. You save one child, the mind of a child, tomorrow they would be changing the whole society, the whole communities. It starts very small. So we are allowing that growth, that as small as it is, starting in school, it will move to your communities, to your churches. Eventually, hopefully so, it will envelope the entire African continent.
I love that. I mean, how are you feeling right now in real time with where technology is and where it is going? Because Elon Musk launched brand new robots some time ago, right? And these robots can do anything from understand how you are dealing or feeling on that day, meaning they will know how to deal with you from a mental health capacity. They will know how to clean your house. They will know how to look after your kids, right? If you are having to be on a Teams or a Zoom call for some time, these robots will know how to look after your kids and play with them. They will even know how to educate them, because they come installed with all this technology and all this vast knowledge of research done over decades and decades, all crammed into a little RAM, plugged into the robot, and you could say you have a Google in the robot looking after your children. And this is the reality that you and I are living in real time, Precious, right now. How should we then be dealing with this, right? Obviously, we are being encouraged to welcome technology, but most people find it intimidating. I was having a talk with my dad at the weekend. We're at my daughter's school concert, right, for 5-year-olds. Very happy. She was on stage, came back, and my dad says to me, I couldn't take videos because my phone doesn't have data. And I'm saying, no, Dad, you don't need data to take videos of your granddaughter. I know you're laughing. This is a real story. Day before yesterday, so like I couldn't take videos because I don't have data on my phone. So my phone doesn't work when it doesn't have data. And that's what you told me. He was saying this to me, like, that's what you told me. I'm like, no, what I meant was you won't be able to chat to me using internet related apps without data, but you can still take a video with your phone and you can post it or share it later. You know, that's where, and I'm also just trying to agree with your point as well, to say, yes, there is a huge gap in terms of technology, and I think, but I don't think it's just in Africa. It's also just the generational gap, right? Those who are our parents and their predecessors will find it more challenging to come, you know, more willingly towards technology than you and I, than my daughter who's living in it, who was born in it, essentially, right? So how do we then bring all of these people together without leaving anyone behind?
That's a very interesting and a tricky question to answer. You're talking about the generational gap.
Yes.
That is so true. Even myself, to tell the honest truth, I was very much intimidated by, you know, my partner. It's not only me who does this, it's me and my partner.
Right.
He's based in New York. When he first introduced me to the thought of, he said, you know that you can learn coding. You know, when you roll your eyes like, oh yeah, right. No, I'm serious, you can learn coding. He said, okay, let's try.
Okay.
Literally over the phone, he would say, now we are doing your loops, there's many terms.
Right.
Well, to my amazement, in 2 weeks, I understood so much over the phone. Now you can think of the time difference. By the time he's calling me, it's 1 a.m. here, so we are even in the middle of the night. But what amazed me was the ability for me to understand. So I said, it is so true. It comes down to the attitude. The attitude which stems up from the mind.
Right.
Once you tell yourself that, no, man, okay, let's do this. Even if you say, let's try. So the generational gap, it is, I fully agree, we're not naive of the fact that, our 70s, our mothers, it will be a little bit difficult with them. But now, I forgive them. Honestly, I do forgive them because they've done their time.
Sure.
Look at our parents now, they've been successful in their own right, in their career. But the problem with us, this environment we're living in, or the times we're living in, it does not allow us to be not participant of technology. It doesn't.
Yeah, we cannot sit on the sidelines.
That's the thing. That is the sad part.
Yeah.
We almost like pushed over because not even 80%, if my stats serves me correctly, something like 90% of everything that we are doing manually, technology is going to take over. So where is that going to leave our children? So it's not a choice that we have. It's not.
Right.
You talk about the robots. The
Yeah.
robot is going to do anything and everything. So where is that going to leave you? The least you could do, compete with Elon Musk and build a better robot than him. Because that's where we are going.
Yeah.
Or that's where we are. Not going. That's where we are.
Because even just the robot story is so funny because this robot was even rapping Snoop Dogg lyrics on some of the videos as well. It could even learn the slang languages in different vernacular, right? So we've got 9 different ones here in South Africa. There's over 70 in Zambia. There's different ones in different countries, and it could learn them almost instantly when you tell it which country you are from. And obviously this is based on archives of material that already exists on the internet, so it's very easy for it to find using artificial intelligence. Anyway, I would have loved for us to continue talking. This is obviously very fascinating. So are you telling us as humans right now in real time, we shouldn't be too anxious about technology, but we should be more welcoming and be more willing to learn? The fact that you learned code in 2 weeks means that anyone can do it, essentially.
So true. Well, so true. Our educational, what they call it, paradigm shift has to change, unfortunately. Our children cannot afford to learn solve for X, solve for Y. Yes, to a certain level, it opens your mind to think further, but it's not a relevant education at this time.
Right.
We're no longer competing with ourselves, we are competing with the world. The world is on a technological global stage right now. So if our children are going to learn nursing, there's nothing wrong with nursing, but nursing very soon will be taken out by the robots. Maybe you, who knows, I'll be interviewed by a robot 2 years from now. It's not even long. That is the sad part.
Right.
2 years, 3 years from now. So how do we bridge that gap? It is through education. It's through changing our mindset. That if I'm repeating myself, if other countries have done it, definitely it gives us a room as Africa, as a continent, as families to learn, to evoke ourselves that this thing is doable, which it is doable, but it starts with the mind. Leave your anxiety aside to say it is scary to going into, because truth being told, this is a very different platforms, but the mind is such a vast thing. It could learn anything. It could learn anything, your mind. So we have to fix the way we think as Africa. We have to.
I love that. That is Precious Msiza right here on Wellness with Will, talking to you and I about how technology can help you with your anxieties. Thanks for watching. We'll catch you again on the next one.
يا أختنا بالله لا يغويك ذا الشيطان إن الحجاب فريضة من ربنا المنان يا أختنا بالله لا يغويك ذا الشيطان إن الحجاب فريضة من ربنا المنان إنا سمعنا أختنا قولا عجابا يغوي كذا الشيطان إن الحجاب فريضة من ربنا المنان يا أختنا بالله لا يغويك ذا الشيطان إن الحجاب فريضة من ربنا المنان نادوا بتحرير الفتاة وألفوا فيه الكتاب رسموا طريقا لتبارج لا يضيعه يا الشباب يا أختنا هذا عواء الحاقدين من الذئاب النار مثوى الظالمين لهم عقاب والله يكشف ظلمهم يوم الحساب والجنة المأوى ويا حسن المآب يا أختنا بالله لا يغويك ذا الشيطان إن الحجاب فريضة من ربنا المنان يا أختنا بالله لا يغويك ذا الشيطان إن الحجاب فريضة من ربنا المنان يا أختنا بالله لا يغويك ذا الشيطان إن الحجاب فريضة من ربنا المنان يا أختنا بالله لا يغويك ذا الشيطان إن الحجاب فريضة من ربنا المنان
Your smile, and yet, so hard, so hard. Remember your eyes, your eyes. Most of all, I remember your smiles. Where there's a right, there is no wrong. I always thought we were so strong, but our time just flew right by. There wasn't a chance to say goodbye. I'm so confused. I feel all alone. Deep in my heart, I know our love has called you home. But yet, your smile still lingers in my mind. And yet, it's so hard. I just break down and cry. I remember your eyes, find a way to melt my heart. Most of all, I remember your smile. Sometimes I lie awake at night, the pain in my heart I just can't find. Why did you have to go away? Yet I know none of us can stay. You'll always be so special to me. In this world, you'll always live as a memory. Oh, but yet, your smile still lives. lingers in my mind. And yet, it's so hard. I just break down and cry. I remember your eyes, find a way to melt my heart. Most of all, I remember your smile. And yeah, your smile still lingers in my mind. And yet, it's so hard. It's so hard. I just break down. I just break down and cry. I remember your eyes. Your eyes. Found a way to melt. Found a way to melt my heart. Most of all, I remember your smile. Thank you.
Are you suffering from pain, stiffness, or poor mobility caused by joint pain or osteoarthritis? Then try new OsteoEase Platinum Plus with clinically proven Overmet and get joint pain relief from 7 days. New OsteoEase Platinum Plus with Overmet protects your joints, tendons, and cartilage, plus reduces inflammation, bringing pain relief from 7 days. Now that's a plus backed by 20 years of joint care expertise. So put our cutting-edge formulation to the 7-day test and move with ease with OsteoEase Platinum Plus.
New Personal Touch washing powder sheets dissolve quickly, leaving behind no residue or stains, just ultra clean laundry.
Smart sheets, easy laundry.
Sarah's day is about to get extreme. She needs stimulant-free energy right here, right now. Turbo Vites, turbocharge your life.
Canada is a country in North America. It consists of 10 states and 3 territories. It covers an area of 9.98 million square kilometers, from the Pacific Ocean to the Atlantic Ocean and the Arctic Ocean in the north. It is the second largest country in the world after Russia in terms of surface area. This is the story of a Canadian who embarked on a journey of self-discovery in Islam.
I'm a French background. That means my ancestors came to Canada, in Quebec then, back 400 years ago, in early 1600. And basically my background is, I used to be a Catholic, just a regular guy living in the suburbs, like most North American, live in a house. That was an easy life, actually. You never missed anything. So what they were teaching basically at school, in my secondary school, like from grade 8 to 13, that was Latin, Greek, science, what you call a good education. So you could go to the university, become a professor, a lawyer, a doctor, engineer. But there was a strong emphasis on religion because my teacher were all priests, basically. You know, so religion was a big part of my upbringing. We used to go to church, Catholic church, Roman Catholic church, every week at least. Sundays, we used to observe like Easter, Christmas, and other religious holidays. But Quebec was too small, you know. Quebec City, the whole mentality was getting too tight, you know. Always the same ideas, the same way to be, the same way to think, and I was more of a dreamer, right? So I wanted to know more about, and all those things I've read and heard about. So I decided I just wanted to know more of the world. Those days there were some people coming from the Maghreb. Moroccan, Algerian, Tunisian in Quebec City. They came for a better life. Then I remember, I will never forget that guy. His name was Mohammed. I was young, maybe 19, so I went to the coffee shop to buy a coffee and take it home and some food. Then the guy looked at me, he says, put some rose water in it, it will taste good. I said, I don't have any rose water. He said, give me a bottle. I said, bring it back. I took the bottle, I tried it, liked it, and brought it back. But I was so surprised that somebody can trust somebody else and give him a bottle of expensive stuff, thinking that he will bring it back, and I brought it back. That was my first real connection with somebody from the Muslim background. And I was surprised, very surprised, you know. That was so unusual for me. And but that's all I knew about Islam. I didn't know about Islam. I knew about Muhammad, alayhi salam, but we heard about it, but it was no dawah whatsoever, because people used to keep to themselves. They were brand new there, right? They don't want to upset anybody. They knew the environment. Keep quiet, do your things quietly, there will be no problem.
He was greatly impressed by the good character of a Muslim he met whilst visiting a shop in Canada. Later, he went to the US state of Florida to pursue an education in English. During his studies, he came across a piece of Islamic music that penetrated deep into his soul. With his admiration for this music, he began to read the books of Muslim musicians.
When I was in Florida, maybe a year or two later, there was a woman, she was Dutch. She used to play this Persian music. Never heard of it before. For some reason, I just kept listening to it. I found it beautiful. Beautiful, Persian. So I started to read, you know, about Gurdjieff. Maybe some people still remember him. Idries Shah. So I read his books. And I was very unusual because some actual thinking was required, not just complexities and this and that. I was not Muslim then. I was not even Catholic anymore. I just gave it up. I was drinking my beer, quite like it a lot, no drugs. But
A providential meeting with a Muslim scholar in Ontario, Canada, became a turning point in his life. Jaffa asked him many questions about Islam and received clear and comprehensive answers.
so I managed to have a talk with the Sheikh, which was a Chishti Sheikh. His name was Sayyid Mumtaz Ali. He was from India, Hyderabad. So I started going to his house. He was working for the government of Ontario, which is a big province in Canada. He was a lawyer, barrister, trained in Osmania University. in Islamic law, so he knew Islam. He knew the law, the Sharia, everything. And but I could talk to him, ask any question. He was always very courteous, polite, well-spoken, better than I am, much, much more educated than I am. But he never wanted, I never felt like an idiot with him. He was very, very nice to me. So I keep asking questions, this and that. Then with him, you know, and talk, have tea, and meet other brothers who were basically most of them Muslim. But I was very open, very, very open, and I felt very comfortable. He never imposed anything on me. Then he started explaining to me and my then wife, we now divorced, what was Islam, you know, the basic things like fasting, prayers, don't eat pork, don't drink, no alcohol, no drugs. I wasn't doing drugs anyways, but I like my beer. So how to do wuzu, you know, the basic daily things of Islam, you know, about Ramadan. But that was never forceful, never felt we were bad people because we're not Muslim, never talked bad against the society was living in, which was Canadian. Even though he was from India, he understood more about our culture than most of the Canadians know anyways. But he was still profoundly Indian in his heart, very well adjusted to the Western world. Even his son is an engineer, quite high up, teaching university in Toronto, a big university. Then one day I asked him, well, I want to become Muslim. He looked at me, it's a big deal, you know, to become Muslim, you know, because you will have some things to do, you know, you will have things you cannot do that will change your life. So you're sure. And anyways, why do you want to become Muslim? You know, there's enough Muslim in this world, you know, what he meant, right? I never quite understood what he meant, I'm sorry to say. What I understood those days says, you're talking to somebody who is very, very implicated with Islam in depth, very down deep. It's from the heart. And are you ready for that trip? You know, for that, what's the word, suluk? You know, you want to travel with us? It's serious stuff. I cannot just take you on just like that because it's a lot of, there's more at stake than you understand. So we'll leave it at that. So, but I kept going, asking questions, like we say in Canada, right? I used to hang around. There used to be function, Maulid, I will go. I was not even Muslim yet. And so on and so forth. I just loved the man. I just loved the man. I was at ease with that man. That man was great. You know? So I never met somebody like that before. So there was an attraction to the man. So it kept going for a few months. Then that was just before Ramadan, the night before Ramadan. I don't remember, I think that was back in 1990. Anyways, so I got a phone call that night, the night before Ramadan started. You give me a call. Okay, you want to become Muslim, you and your wife? Okay, come to my place, you'll say Shahada, and tomorrow morning, you start fasting Ramadan. We never done Ramadan. We never done the prayers. We practice a little bit. But today, tonight, for some reason, you just give me the call. Didn't ask me. I don't know why. I'm never going to ask why. So I go to his house, me and my then wife, we do the Shahada, right? And the next morning we got up at 4 o'clock, eat, you know, and start fasting for that was the first Ramadan of my life. And alhamdulillah, I was able to do it. Even though that was my first day of being officially a Muslim. That was Ramadan, the first day of Ramadan.
By the grace of Allah, he entered Islam in the holy month of Ramadan and took the name Jafar. Jafar quickly abandoned all his bad habits. He fell in love with Islam because of the beautiful character he saw in this Muslim scholar.
I stopped drinking those few weeks, months before. We have no pork in the house. And, you know, like we just said bit by bit, we eliminated stuff, which was actually quite good. Being Muslim and non-Muslim, you know, drinking was not good. That's it. Eating pork is not good because it affects me mentally in a way I only understood when I stopped eating it for long enough. Then I start understanding the effect it had on my spiritual life or my mental life or whatever. Very subtle, right? But because he told me, you are what you eat, you know, that's it. So then he goes on, right? Life goes on, keep working and this and that. Then one day, he used to go to Umrah every year, him and his wife. Then one day, he called me and said, Martin, I didn't have a Muslim name yet. You didn't give me one. You didn't try to paint me Muslim. You follow what I'm saying? You see, we want you, your heart or whatever you are, just being, to be Muslim. And you will, you know what, the name will grow on you. This will grow on you. The shirt will grow on you eventually. That's the way he was thinking. We'll take you where you're at and bring you back to life. You know, bit by bit. So he told me, I'm going to Umrah next month. You want to come with me and my family? Okay. All right, sure. I didn't know what I was in for. So, yeah, that's it. Then he announced to the other people he was taking me to Umrah, right? They were all surprised. Why me, you know? It's like this song they have, Paul Simon had a song, Like a Dog, I Got Befriended. You know, when you see a dog on the side of the road and you pat him and the dog is all happy, I was no more than that. A good man just pet the dog and the dog is all happy. That's who I was then. I'm still like that. I'm no more than a dog being befriended by a real human being. You know.
Jafar was invited to Mecca to perform Umrah, the lesser pilgrimage of Islam. Despite facing difficulties in funding his trip, through Allah's generosity and help, he was able to go.
But I couldn't pay for the ticket because I was not a rich man, far from it. I was my kids, the work was hard. I was going to phone him and say, sorry, Mumtasha, we used to call him Mumtasha, because Mumtaz Ali, Mumtasha, I cannot go, you know, I was crying, like, I wanted to go so badly, but I said, I cannot do that to my family for my own personal experience, right? And not having shoes on for my kids or whatever, right? I was talking to my wife, I was crying, you know, crying my eyes out. And she understood, right? I cannot afford it because you're gonna lack something. Then I got a phone call from him. He says, oh, I just bought a ticket today. I bought yours too. You understood? I couldn't believe it. I said, I was in shock. But I understood something that day. He was a real Muslim. A real Muslim. Generous man. Take care of his people. Generous with, you know, he was not just blah, blah, blah. He bought his ticket, you know. He paid for the whole trip. It took me a long time to realize how generous he was. But because of that man, I stayed in Islam.
The lofty character of the Muslim scholar who Jafar met, reflected the light of Islam to him. Jafar felt divine love in the depths of his heart. Living in the holy cities of Mecca and Medina were the happiest moments of his life.
Mumtaz Ali, Sayyid Mumtaz Ali, bring me to Mecca, Medina for Umrah. That was the first time I went out. I got out in North America, so for me it was such a surprise. I ended up in Saudi Arabia. It's another world, you know, and I cannot explain. I was not even prepared. I didn't know all the prayers and all the ritual. He had to explain to me bit by bit, you know, as we go, you know. Okay, do this, okay, dress like this, okay, stop, go, you know. And so I remember my first thing is when I end up in Mecca. So